Hello developers, welcome again to our design pattern playlist in programming fields. So far in our playlist, we have covered essential patterns like repository, service, observer, factory and singleton patterns. If you have missed any of those patterns, don't forget to check out the playlist. I will provide the link in the description below. Now in the today's video, we will explore the strategy pattern in Laravel 11. This design pattern helps make your code more flexible, scalable and easier to maintain. Therefore, by the end of this video, you will understand how to use this strategy pattern to handle conditional based logic in Laravel 11. But before moving ahead, let's see the today's outline which are going to be covered in this video. Here is what we will cover today. Firstly, we will understand what the strategy pattern is. Next, we will see why and when to use it. Furthermore, we will look at the challenges of not using it. Then we will implement the strategy pattern in Laravel 11 with the coding example. And finally, we will validate our implementation by testing the solution. Okay. So let's start with what is a strategy pattern. The strategy pattern is a behavioral design pattern that allows you to define a family of algorithm or behavior. So basically, the strategy pattern encapsulates the conditional logic and behavior into a separate classes and make them interchangeable at runtime. This means you can dynamically decide which behavior or logic to execute without modifying the main logic of your application. For example, if you have multiple ways to handle user roles just like admin, editor or guest, the strategy pattern allows you to define each behavior independently. And this promotes the open closed principle, that is OCP, which comes under the solid design principle. So the meaning of OCP is your code is open for extension. That means it can be extendable further, but it is closed for modification. That specifies it cannot be modified again and again. So by using this approach, you can dynamically switch between these behaviors at runtime. Okay, next we will see when or why to use the strategy design pattern. So the strategy pattern is not something you will use everywhere in your Laravel project, but it is incredibly powerful in the right solutions. So when should you consider it? Firstly, this is easier to extensibility. That means if you foresee adding new behaviors in the future, the strategy pattern allows you to extend your application by simply creating new strategies without touching existing code. And this avoids messy logic. So if your application relies heavily on if-else or switch statements to handle multiple behaviors like user roles, the strategy pattern can simplify your code and improve maintainability. And this promotes the clean code. So by following the open closed principle and separating concerns, the strategy pattern keeps your code base clean and modular. Also, this provides the reusable behavior. So when you need to share similar logic like greeting message or calculations across multiple entities, you can encapsulate these behaviors in the strategy pattern. And this ensures the consistency and reusability. Now we will talk about the common problems without having this strategy pattern in the Laravel project. So just imagine you are handling user roles with conditional logic like if-else or switch statements. Over the time period, as new roles are added, the logic becomes harder to manage and leading to unmaintainable code. And this also violates the open closed principle because every new role requires modifying existing code. So let's understand this problem using the coding example. So I will quickly come to the VS Code editor. Here I already have a Laravel application. Inside app, HTTP, we have the controllers. Firstly, I will create a fresh controller here. So I will come to the terminal. I will create a controller and I will name it greeting controller. Now inside this greeting controller, I will define a function and I will provide the function name as show greetings. Inside this, I just want to display greeting message for different user roles. So firstly, I will define a variable as role. Here I will provide a static variable. Let's suppose admin. I'm providing this user role value static because I don't have authentication system implemented here. If you have the user authentication implemented, then you can fetch the user role from there. Now here I want to display different greeting message based on different user roles. So I will consider the role as admin, publisher, editor or default. So here I will just write down the roles. So we will have role as admin, editor, publisher, and I will set one default user. Now based on these all roles, I want to display different greeting message. Firstly, I will add one condition. If we have role as admin, then I want to return the message as hey admin, you have full access. Okay. Next, for the editor, I will add else if condition. If role is equals to editor, here I will display message as hey editor, you have edit access. Next, I will add publisher, and I will provide the message as hey publisher, you have published access. But apart from these all roles, if we have any further role just like subscriber, viewer, something, then for those I will add one else condition, and I will add one common message, hey user, you have viewer access. Okay, this is fine. So based on these all roles, I have added the greeting message. Now if you'll execute this function, so I will create one route inside web.php. Here I will define one more route get greeting, and here I will call that controller as greeting controller class, and I will call that function as show greetings. I will copy this endpoint. I will come to the browser, and after this URL I will paste that URL greeting. This displayed the message as hey admin, you have full access, because we have defined the hard-coded user role as admin. Now instead of this, if we want to pass the dynamic role, then here I will capture that in the route. Okay, I will remove this, and from the route I will receive one parameter as role. Now I will come to the browser, and after this I will pass the parameter as role admin. If I will hit enter, yeah, this is executed. Similarly, if I will pass editor, this changed the message as hey editor, and respectively for the publisher and something, if I will pass, then for that this will display the default message. Okay, yes, this is working. Now let's come to the VS Code editor. Inside the controller, we have added the different greeting message for the different user roles. While this works, but this is not scalable. Every time when you add a new role, you will need to modify this method. You will have to add more if else condition based on the newly added role. So over the time period, this can make your code messy and harder to maintain. Now here we can solve this using the strategy pattern. So in the strategy pattern, we will have to separate these all greetings based on the user role in the separate classes. Okay, so let's talk about the folder structure before implementing that strategy pattern. So I will come to the outline.md file. I will remove this. I will just remove this factory. This is not needed in this current folder structure. Inside the controllers, we have already created greeting controller. So I'll be using this. And inside the services, I will create one folder. So I will name that as greeting strategies. Alright, this will come inside the services folder. Now inside the greeting strategies, we will have to create different classes to maintain greeting message for different roles. So inside this, firstly I will create one class for admin greeting. Next we will have to create it for editor, and also we'll have to make it for publisher greeting, and I will create one more for the default. This will default greeting. If apart from the admin, editor and publisher, if you want to display greeting message for other user, then that will fall under this default greeting. Next we will have to create one more class to maintain the business logic. So I will create greeting context class. This will be inside the services itself. Alright, and I will define one more class to handle the greeting message based on different roles. So inside this services itself, here I will create one more class as role greeting. Okay, this is fine. And also we will need an interface so that we can abstract the greeting functionality inside that. So inside the greeting strategy folder itself, I will create one interface, and this will be greeting interface.php. Alright, so let's quickly set up this folder structure here. Firstly, we will create greeting strategies folder inside the services. Alright, so let's come to the terminal. Here I will create one class as php-addition make class, and this class will come under the services greeting strategies. Here I will create class as admin greeting. Let's hit enter. Yes, admin greeting class has been created inside the greeting strategies folder. Now similarly, let's create other classes here. Next we will have editor and publisher, and I will create one more for the default, and inside this I will create one interface. So I will change the command as make interface. Here we can keep it in separate folder as interface, that is up to you. I will create greeting interface. Let's hit enter. Yes, this is created. And if we'll come to the folder structure, we have to create the greeting context and role greeting service. So I will copy this, and this has to be created inside the greeting strategies. So let's copy this. Let's come to the terminal. Inside make class command, I will remove this folder greeting strategies. I will provide the class name as greeting context, and I will provide one more as role greeting service. Let's hit enter. Yes, this is created. So if we'll take a look to the folder structure, inside the services we have the greeting strategies folder. There we have admin, default greeting, editor greeting, and publisher greeting. Now outside this greeting strategies folder, inside the services we have the greeting context and we have role greeting service. This is done. Now let's start implementing the strategies pattern. Let me close this route. So firstly, let's start with the interface. So inside the interfaces, we have the services directory. Inside this, we have the greeting interface. However, this services directory is not needed. So simply, I will move this greeting strategies folder outside this services, and I will remove this services directory from here. And also this greeting strategies folder is not needed. I will keep this interface outside the folder, and I will remove this folder name here. This is fine. Now inside the interfaces, we have the greeting interface, and respectively we will have to update the namespace here. This is inside app interfaces. This is correct. Here I will define one function as public function, let's suppose greet. Okay, and here I will specify the return type as string, because this will return the message. Okay, now we will have to implement this method inside the services greeting strategies. So let's start with the admin greeting. This constructor is not needed, so I will remove this constructor from here. And firstly we will have to implement that interface here. So I will use implements keyword, and this will implement the greeting interface. Now based on that greeting interface method, we will have to implement that method here. So we'll write public function greet, and this should return the string. So here we will return the message, hey admin, or we can simply copy that message from here. Alright, now let's copy this method from here, and similarly we will have to implement it in other greeting classes. So let's add it here first. This is editor. For the editor we have message as you have edit access, and in the publisher as well. And lastly we will have to add in the default greetings as well. Hey user, you have viewer access, and we will have to implement the interface here. So we will write implements greeting interface. Same thing, we will have to add it in other classes. Okay, this is done. Now next we will have to write the business logic to call this interface. So I will come to the greeting context class, and here inside the constructor I will inject that interface. So I will call greeting interface. I will create one instance here as greeting interface, and let's define one variable here as private greeting interface. Now inside the constructor I will assign this instance to this private variable, just like this. Now by using this instance I will call that greet function, which is defined here in the interface and implemented in the all strategies classes. Alright, so I will create one function here, public function show greeting. Inside this I will call that function using this instance. So we have the greeting interface instance. By using this I will call the greet function, just like this, and this will return the string message. Okay, now we will have to inject this class, and we will have to call this method from the role greeting service that we have created here. So inside the role greeting service I will create one function as get greeting, and this method will be called from the controller. Alright, so I will receive one parameter as, let's suppose, role, because we have to capture the user role. Now inside this I can use switch statement or I can use if statement. So better I will use switch statement here. Inside this I will pass the role. Thereafter I will check case if it is admin. Then I will use admin greeting class here. So I will define one variable strategy, and here I will instantiate the admin greeting class. Okay, so basically this will assign the admin greeting instance to this variable. Alright, next we have to check for editor. If it is editor, then we will have to assign the editor greeting class. Furthermore, we will have to write it for publisher, and this will be publisher greeting. Alright, lastly for the default case we have the default greeting class. Okay, now we will have to pass this strategy in this greeting context so that we can call this show greeting function from there. So we will have to inject this class here. So what I will do, I will create one instance of that class using the new keyword, new greeting context, and inside this greeting context class we will have to inject this strategy, because here we have captured that greeting interface instance, so that we will receive it from this greeting class. So let's pass this strategy here. Now we will have to capture this instance here. Let's suppose greet, better I will write greet context. Now using this greet context instance I will call this show greeting function. So I will write $greet context show greeting. Alright, this is fine, and inside this greeting context we will have to return the message. Okay, this is fine. Now let's come to the controller. Inside the greeting controller I will comment these all conditions, and here I will create one constructor so that we can inject that greeting service. We have the role greeting service here, so we will inject that in the constructor. So I will define public function construct. Inside this constructor I will inject that role greeting service, and I will create one instance as role greeting. Again I will define one variable here as private role greeting, and I will assign this instance to this private variable. This is fine. Now by using this instance, I will call that function which is defined here inside the role greeting service as getGreeting. So let's call this function. Here I will call $this role greeting implies that function name getGreeting. Now this function expects one parameter as role type because we have captured that. So inside the role greeting service, we can see we will have to pass that role from there. So let's pass this dynamic role here. Okay, and let's return that message so that we can display that. This is fine. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Okay, it has not returned anything, so there might be some issue. Let's come to the code editor. From here, let's try to debug that. So I will add dump and die $role. Yeah, here we are getting that parameter. Now from here, this is calling this role greeting get greeting. So this is inside the role greeting service. Inside this, are we getting that role? Yeah, inside the service we are getting that. Okay, here we have issue. We have initialized this greeting context class inside the switch statement itself. We will have to move these two lines outside the switch, just like this. Okay, and from here this will call this greeting context class. Okay, and that we will have to return it here. Alright, this is fine. Now let's come to the browser. Let's refresh. Yes, we can see we have the same result. Hey user, you have viewer access. Now let's change this parameter to admin. Yes, we have the admin message. For editor, we have the editor, and for the publisher as well. Okay, the result is same. Now let's understand what we have done here. So let's start with the controller. Inside the greeting controller, let me dock this window first. Firstly, inside the constructor, I have injected the role greeting service, and let me close other files. Inside the service class, we have captured the parameter as role, and based on the given role, I have added the switch statement, and based on every user role, we have a separate greeting class, and you can say as a strategy. So for every user role, we have different strategy, and this strategy means a greeting message based on different role. So for admin, we have admin greeting strategy. For editor, we have the editor greeting strategy, and for the publisher, and lastly we have added this for default. Now from here, again I'm calling one more class as greeting context. So inside that greeting context, I have injected the greeting interface, and by using that interface, I'm calling the greet function. Okay, now if we'll come to that interface, here we have defined the greet function, and this is returning string message. Now this greet method has been implemented in different classes. That means based on different user roles, we have different strategy class. So we have admin. For the admin, we have implemented that greet message, and we are returning that greeting message for the admin. Next we have the default, we have the editor greeting, we have the publisher greeting. So this method has been defined here in the greeting interface, but this is implemented inside every single strategy which are defined for the user roles. So this is the strategy pattern implementation. Now the benefits of using this strategy pattern is, Later, if we have more user roles, then we can simply create one more strategy class for that without modifying the functionality. Only we will have to add that here in the role greeting service. So based on that role, we will have to call that strategy here. Rest, you have nothing to worry about the business logic or functionality. Alright, the controller logic will remain same. Also for that greeting context, this will same. In the interface, you don't have to update anything. So that's it for this video, and congratulations on learning this strategy pattern in Laravel 11. Just remember, this is a part of a series where we have already covered the different design patterns like repository, services, observer, factory and singleton patterns. Don't forget to check out the playlist to dive deeper into these patterns and enhance your Laravel skills. If this video helped you, hit that like button, share it with your fellow developers, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And let's build a scalable and maintainable application together. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the next video. Until then, happy coding.